is Brittany. I am the Jellyfish Education Coordinator at Save Barnegat Bay. We are working on a Stop the Sting campaign. So that's everything you see here, everything going around, this whole crazy mess. That's us. We are working in partnership, Save Barnegat Bay, obviously. Anyone who's working with Save Barnegat Bay or volunteering with Save Barnegat Bay, can you please raise your hand real quick? Show everyone. Over here. Perfect. Beautiful.
No, you're confusing everything. No.
I've got two sides.
It's staff,
Which
not
one do I do?
Staff.
Brittany.
And then we also are working in partnership with Berkeley Township's own Berkeley Township Underwater Search and Rescue, volunteers and divers. Please raise your hand if you are involved with that organization.
That's when you raise your hand.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Pay attention.
We're also in partnership with Montclair State University and Dr. Paul Bologna, who unfortunately could not make it tonight, but he is a scientist who's going to be doing all the science and stuff in your lagoons as we do the scrubbing and move forward in our project. So special thank you to him. And we are also working with the NJDEP, and also no one can make it from NJDEP tonight, but they partially funded this grant and they've been working closely with us ever since we started the project, so special thank you to them as well. Quick introductions. Oh, and names. Yes. Oh my goodness.
The
yes.
one people that do.
Oh, the other people you've been talking
They're
to.
still
all
working.
The students who have been working with you so closely all night and looking over your settling plates and processing them. Dr. John Lennick and his students have been helping everyone out a lot all night. So special thank you to them for coming last minute. Thank you. Thank you. I know I'm not really good at
Keep going, you're good.
So, in a quick introduction to Stop the Sting, we had our first Jellyfish Observation Day in August. So that was kind of an introduction on who we are and what we'll be doing, the science that we'll be doing in your lagoons in Berkeley Shores, and then in other lagoons in the next 2 years moving forward. We had a quick, Dr. Paul Bologna was able to speak and talk more about jellyfish and why we are doing the Stop the Sting campaign. So a little bit more about jellyfish, the jellyfish in your lagoons. They're called bay nettles. In the summer, that's when you see more adults stinging jellyfish. Those are the ones that kind of easily identify. You know what they are, they're stinging, they're kind of a nuisance, right? They've been slowly dying out as the season progressed. They go through 2 phases of reproduction. So there's sexual reproduction, there's egg and sperm. They kind of join in the water, turn into a larvae. And then the larvae eventually forms to a polyp, which is settling on bulkheads and docks all across the lagoons. That is what we'll be scrubbing in this next phase. So this phase is kind of talking more about the operations of polyps and what we'll be doing on bulkheads and docks in Berkeley Shores, which is what Carl and Greg are mostly in charge of, which will be scrubbing bulkheads and docks in Berkeley Shores, starting this month, around the end of this month, all the way through into early spring, while the polyps are still in bulkheads.
You want to mention the other 2 elements of the project?
The settling places, you're part of the community science program, so anybody who brought in a settling plate today is helping with the education program. We're just educating more about jellyfish, how they work, their reproductive system, their life cycle, and why we are finding them in lagoons in such big numbers, and what we can do to stop them. Scrubbing is, or reducing numbers. Scrubbing is one way of reducing numbers. Also having, getting rid of nutrient pollution in our lagoons is another great way to reduce the number of jellyfish populations in our lagoons moving forward. That's a more preventative solution. Scrubbing is a more reactive solution. So we would want to try to get lagoons healthier and cleaner to reduce the amount of jellyfish. And in the meantime, we would be scrubbing to try to reduce them further back.
And any questions about all the details of that?
Yeah, come to me. Yeah, come to me anytime. I have my email. It's jellyfish@SaveBarnegat Bay. Most of you probably perfectly. And I will be here all night, obviously, as well. So I want to hand off the more operations part of our program to Carl and Greg so they can talk more about that. Do we have any questions before I do that? No? Perfect.
Thank you, Brittany. Brittany's been great. She's kind of the full-time lead on this, and has really been heading up outreach for the Jellyfish project. We haven't been able to do anything we've done thus far without this. But last time, as Brittany mentioned, Mr. Bologna talked a little bit about science and jellyfish and the history of jellyfish and finding jellyfish in the bay. But this time, we're going to talk a little bit more about what we're mechanically going to be doing and how we're going to do it, and maybe some of the equipment we're going to use. But first, I'll welcome you here. This is Berkeley Township Water Search and Rescue. We refer to ourselves as the dive team. BTUSAR is a obnoxiously long acronym that everybody dislikes. But hold on to it, I can't let go. But we've been around since 1976. We've served the Barnegat Bay as best we can since then. Many storied water adventures in the history of the dive team. We've gotten our hands involved into all sorts of different things, from pulling broke stuff out of the bay, finding lost things in all manner of bodies of water, and helping stuff with the Navy, with various science research projects, and then now culminating with the DEP funding our jellyfish mitigation project that Save Barnegat Bay has been kind enough to help us get through. But what that means we are trying to decrease the population of jellyfish in the Barnegat Bay. And as Brittany mentioned, it's a reaction to other. This is the symptom of other problems. So it's fine, we're doing it. We're trying to help everybody make the bay a little bit more livable. It's not the final step to solving the problem. It's just kind of treating the symptom. But we're going to see what we can do. Right now, this is it's a project. It's nothing that we've been able to prove, but over the course of the next 3 years, 2.5 years, whatever, it's kind of been a half a year already into it. We're going to see if we can prove our methods, which I'm about to describe to you, whether they work or not. And if we can prove that they work, this is a thing that can be copied and taken to other parts of the world that are having similar problems. So it's kind of a big deal. Our austere beginnings here, all the wacky equipment we've designed and stuff we've put together, hopefully could help people in a lot of other places deal with similar water quality problems and overpopulation of jellyfish. But my name is Greg. I got ahead of myself. I'm the chief of the dive team. I've only been around here probably like 13, 14 years. And this is Carl Mattocks. This me? He is the president of the dive team. How long have you been on the dive team?
Not much longer than you, frankly.
Really?
No, seriously. But yeah, so I'm Carl Mattocks. I am the president. And I was very fortunate that when I moved to Bayville in 2005, I recognized the signage on this building. That looks like a dive place. And I walked in, and there's a group of guys wandering around, shouting at each other. And I said, you guys do diving? And they go, yes. I said, I'm a diver. I'm like, you are? I said, yeah. He said, well, do you want to join? I said, yeah, but what do you do first? So basically, I'm going to tell you what we do first. So we are a charity. All our members are volunteers. All our equipment, everything that you see here has been obtained by our own efforts. We get our own funds. We get almost every year we get a small grant from the township, but that's it. So we're constantly coming up with ways that we can serve the community, do things that are useful, and then people will think good of us and perhaps give us some money. Well, see, I have to tell you this because we're always thinking about it. When I got here, they were called Berkeley Township Underwater Search and Rescue Unit, and that's what we do. So we specialize in working under the water because everyone gets trained to be a diver, and we have equipment that they can use to breathe underwater. But we also do surface search and rescue. So I don't know if you've seen boat races out on the bay or offshore. We'll do standby, so-called safety standby there. If one of those, if there's a collision or an incident, we will go to the boat, get out the people who were maybe still in it or were afloat or now in the water, and if the boat starts to sink, we'll try and prevent it becoming a disaster on the water. Because if anyone has a boat, ever been on a boat, there's all kinds of fluids in it, and when it goes in the water, it's not good. It doesn't help the environment. And that's why we got involved in this kind of activity. The more we understood about the hazards that could be in the waters that we work in, could be the bay, could be a lake, could be a flooded pit, could be a river, could be anywhere. We want to make sure that when our volunteers get in that water and try to do good things, that we're not putting ourselves in harm because someone put a hazard in there. So we do things like doing a cleanup of the river, Cedar Creek, which runs through the public park. We do it every year, and the stuff we find is outrageous. Broken bottles, beer cans, garbage thrown in,
Pool filters.
chairs, pieces of cars, all manner of things. And frankly, there's kids going there. There's tourists come here to enjoy the surroundings, and that's what people do to it. So we try and make sure that there are less hazards in the water, because fundamentally, when we get in it, we don't want to hurt ourselves. And two, we try and help people understand. I mean, when we do it every year, we create a massive pile here, and then we just say, everybody, this is what was in the water that you're now enjoying. We have to do those things, otherwise people just don't think about what they do, how they mistreat this environment. So we do search and rescue, we do it under the water, on top of the water, we work with canines all over the state, like the storm Ida, many places got flooded, people were getting lost in the water, vehicles get lost in the water. If any of you were here during Sandy, there was lots of hazards in the water then. So we've been involved in all those cleanups, right? And for us, jellyfish is just another hazard. So every time we come across a hazard, we have to figure out how best we can deal with it. We try and get the best equipment. You know, we try to get suits that will protect us if it's going to be water that's polluted with oils and fuel and whatever else, right? Because we want our volunteers to stay with us. We don't want them to get sick. We don't want them to get ill. We don't want them to get hurt from what they're trying to when they're trying to help others. So we're very much focused on that. As president, that's my main job. Make sure there's that we manage the risk as much as we can do, right? So we have to have good equipment. When we're on the water, it's risky by itself, but we try to get the best mass. Fortunately, we're now able to get through this work. We were able to get mass that we can actually talk to each other in the same way, basically military-style mass. We can talk to each other under the water. Fabulous stuff. And we can talk to people who are on the boats who are supporting us, right? Because that's neat. Communication is key in what we do. And when we have lots of people in the water, lots of boats in the water, and lots of things going on, such as when there's a collision at a boat race, or when there's flooded water and people are driving the cars and they get stopped, etc., etc., we have to be the guys who are nice, calm, cool, collected, and say, all right, guys, let's work together, let's do what we have to do. So that's what we do, and we train all the time, every year. Ever since I've been here, the second day I was here, I went to a training session in the bay. So, and we do it all year round. So that's the most important thing I need you to know about us. That we want to help. We want to ensure that when you go out in the water, when you go enjoy the surroundings, there's less hazards for you. And right now, one of the biggest hazards is jellyfish, right? So we worked out a method. You want to explain it?
So let me weave you a tale. Once upon a time, it was like 3 or 4 years ago now, the DEP came to us and asked to come up with a method to scrub bulkheads. So way back when, there's a couple different people on the team, but we came up with a modified like trash pump pool scrubber kind of thing, and we made up some equipment on the fly, as we're pretty good at, and we went out and we did a test and showed the DEP that it was possible to be able to scrub bulkheads and remove stuff, build up on bulkheads without damaging them, and doing it in a reasonably quick way. Well, the DEP was impressed. That time kind of came and went. We kind of just chalked it up to another success for somebody that needed some help. But years later, we found this opportunity to bring that project a little further. So now we're trying to do this at scale. We're trying to go and do as many bulkheads, if not all the bulkheads that we can. We kind of talked about it a little bit before, but to get more specific, what we're actually targeting is composite bulkheads, vinyl bulkheads. The old wood style bulkheads haven't been as much of a problem, and stuff doesn't like to live on them. There's stuff that lives in stuff that's impregnated into the wood that the jellyfish polyps just generally don't like as much, or there wasn't as much of a problem when there was more wood bulkheads. And there's kind of been a theory that with the increase in the vinyl and plasticky bulkheads, that now there's more space, friendly space, for these jellyfish polyps to latch onto and to live. So what we're trying to target specifically is these new plasticky, kind of cool vinyl looking bulkheads. And even though they look pretty, they last for a long time. The negative is stuff likes to live on them. More jellyfish likes to live on them more than they did the wood. So we're going to go around is we're trying to organize a map and target these types of bulkheads specifically, in addition to floating docks. So something a lot of people don't think about, but floating docks have plasticky surfaces on the bottom that jellyfish polyps also really, really like too. So jet ski docks, floating docks, things like that as well. We're going to go around and we're making a big old map, and we're going to carve it up into sections, and we're going to take our team and our equipment out, and we're going to scrub these bulkheads. That's the simple way of putting it, but what we're going to be doing is bringing divers and deckhands over to an area, to a bulkhead, and we're going to be we have power washers, we have deck brushes, we have all manner of recording equipment, and what we'll be doing is we'll be inspecting the bulkhead before we begin work on it. We're going to take a look and make sure we're not going to make it any worse. If somebody has a collapsed bulkhead or a hole in the bulkhead or something's damaged, we're going to have to walk away from that one. We're happy to let you know that we found a hole in your bulkhead, but we won't be scrubbing. And after we determine that the bulkhead is structurally sound, we will begin to scrub the bulkhead, and we'll remove any buildup that's on the surface of the bulkhead. Now, the same thing goes for floating docks or jet ski docks. What we're going to be doing is scrubbing the bottoms of them as well, or any part that's in the water, and we're going to be trying to disturb any of the buildup that's on there, because the polyps live in that stuff. As you can kind of see, hopefully with the settling plates that were brought today, if any of you guys haven't already, you should take a look. You can see the stuff that builds on these surfaces as they sit in the water. What we're going to do is try to disturb that, and if we do, the idea is these jellyfish polyps at that stage in their life, if we violently remove them from their comfortable homes, that they might not become jellyfish in the future. So, and tied with this, so it's as simple as that. We're going around removing jellyfish polyps from surfaces that sit in the water. But tied with that is the science of proving that this works, that this decreases the numbers of jellyfish in the bay. So as we're doing this over the years, the next 2.5 years, we have Montclair State with Mr. Bologna and some Maine people doing water quality stuff to try to tie what the water is doing as we're doing this, and then doing counts of jellyfish to actually see if we're affecting the population of jellyfish in the bay. And then after 3 years, that there's a statistical likelihood that what we're doing is causing a decrease in the jellyfish, there's a very good chance that, well, we're probably going to keep going, realistically. And it'll turn into a much larger project. So this is the pilot, this is the beginning to something that's become much, much bigger. Like I mentioned before, taken to other locations, but not just taken to other locations, it could become a thing here where it could be a municipally supported project. Our hopes being that instead of us dealing with you guys as individuals and scrubbing one bulkhead here and 2 bulkheads there and 3 bulkheads over here and scrubbing this jet ski dock, we would work with Township and increase our efforts in numbers and go out and do a town and really affect what we need to affect. Do an amount of surface area that will really help the problem in the way that we want to help it. But the equipment we're going to be using is a big part of the fun of this story. So we're really spoke in as vague as we can now. But one of the things that the dive team is really, really good at is working on stuff. So we have a lot of really handy people on the team. We have a lot of folks that are mechanics and people that work with their hands in other stages of their life. So over the years, what we've been able to do is fix, rebuild, and maintain all of our own equipment. And if anyone's looked around the other side of the building, you can see the pile of weird old stuff we have lying around. It does work, most of it. It has worked. It will work again. But what we've done with the Jellyfish Project is we've been lucky enough to have a little bit of support from the DP, and we've been able to amplify our skills and efforts and actually manufacture all of our own equipment. So everything that we're going to be using, there's a couple off-the-shelf things. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We buy what we can off the shelf, use what we need to use. But a lot of specialty equipment, instead of having it purpose-built by somebody where we'd have to pay a whole lot of money, we're able to get volunteers that have this expertise that are willing to come in, and we're able to create and manufacture our own designs in-house and go out and use purpose-built gear and do everything ourselves. So a lot of times when you get grants, you worked in this world before, you're worried about in-kind donations and amplifying the value of the money that the state or the public is spending on a project. But what's happened here is we've been able to amplify the funds that have been given to us way more than a lot of other people that get given state money. It's not just the hands-on work of, okay, you gave us $1 million and we're going and we're buying this, we're buying that, and then it's just hands scrubbing bulkheads. It's the value of us literally creating a process from scratch and being able to recreate it on a larger scale if need be, so we have that kind of knowledge in-house. But all the work that goes into creating, maintaining, and running all of that specialty equipment, in addition to the labor of physically doing the task itself. So something that we're very proud of is our mechanical ability, and we were happy to be able to bring it to bear here. But what that means is we got
I think
some
we
cool,
should do the reveal now.
we got some cool stuff. So it got a little dark.
Do the reveal. Our finest piece of
I would
equipment.
see. We would have to move it. You guys on tire machines? Yeah.
You see this? We've also got a tire
We got a very
changer.
own tire machine. You need a tire changer?
Right.
Come on.
And why was that needed? It's because
We got a lot of tires.
we got a trailer donated to us, right? And we got a boat donated to us. And the boat was too heavy for the trailer, so we had to modify the trailers. And then we realized that if we don't balance it perfectly, the tires are going to be deflated all the time. So then we had to find tires that could support the weight, and then we had to change them ourselves.
That is one small story in the saga that is the bridge boats. But that's what I wanted to reveal, the real big reveal. The vessels we're using, the centerpiece of this project, are two boats we got from the Army. They used to be the Army's, and they got rid of them. They got new ones, so we picked up their trash. They're Mark II BEBs. They're bridge erection boats. They are the boats that you saw painted blue and white just on the corner of the building over here as you guys came in. Those were designed to be shallow water combat support craft for the Army to build field expedient bridges across any lake, river, stream, pond, approach to shore, anywhere, using floating bridge caissons. So if the Army needs to get a bunch of tanks or trucks or people across a body of water, what they can do is they can drive these large trucks called hemmets. You look it on your phone, they're really big. And they would dump these floating bridge caissons in the water, and they fold out and make this cool ka-clunka noise. And the guys jump on there and they ratchet them together, and they can assemble these things into contiguous pieces to span a body of water, or they can put a couple together and make like a barge. And what moves that barge around, what puts that bridge into place, is those things out there, these bridge erection boats. They were in service for a little while. The design had been in the Army for a little bit, and they've been all over the world, used in many, many different conflicts and many, many different circumstances. Reasonably reliable boats. The cool thing about them is they're small. They're designed to be used in littoral shallow waters, and they're very powerful. So those are miniature, trailerable tugboats, basically. Very, very powerful tugboats, but they're jet drive. So one of the interesting things about them is working with us, with people in the water, divers, workers, standing in the mud, standing in the sand, people swimming around. One of the things we always have to worry about is spinning blades of metal on the back of the craft. Great, you need them to move around, but when you're trying to get people in and out of the boat, generally the ladder's in the back. The other thing that's in the back is the propeller. With these, if I turn the boat on and start moving forward and somebody's in the back of the boat, it just pushes them away from the boat. They can't hurt themselves. So it's a great safety measure for us. But it's also a wonderful platform because the Army designed these things to be basically floating rectangles with push knees in the front that just smash into stuff and move them around. Well, for us, it's perfect because it's a big open deck that basically turns into a moving work barge, a really, really maneuverable deck barge. Because these are jet drive boats, you guys aren't familiar with that, what that means is there's a turbine, just like a jet engine, encased inside of a tube on the back of the boat. There's a diesel engine inside of the boat, there's two diesel engines, but for one of them, there's a shaft that goes through and spins the turbine. That sucks up water from the bottom of the boat and shoots it out the back. The cool thing about that, other than the propeller being on the inside, is there's scoops on the back of the boat. And they go up and down, and we can precisely maneuver these boats and do a lot of cool stuff with them in shallow water. So moving around, even a large boat with a lot of weight, with a lot of people, I could tow stuff, I could move stuff, but even if I'm not, very, very maneuverable. So moving around people's private property, other vessels, or getting into areas that might be a little tight or where we need to be, we can put them wherever we want, and they can carry whatever we want. They're very sturdy boats, a whole lot of flotation. They're hopefully going to serve us well. They've been great workhorses so far, and we're very happy to have them. But as Carl said, these things did not come to us in perfect working order, or in the place that we needed them to be. So the Army, when they get rid of stuff, they don't always polish it up before they give it to you. So we got these things on these giant metal cradles. We had to pull them off of there, disassemble the cradles that they came on, build and design our own boat trailers, place the boat on the trailer. We're still learning how to put it on the trailer. Here's the process. But in addition, getting the engines running, bringing them back up to speed, figuring stuff out. There turns out, if anyone cares, it's a little more minutiae than anyone might want, but they're Sabre engines. Never heard of a Sabre motor before. The Army, in its infinite wisdom, ordered a custom motor for that boat, only for that boat. This company in England made this engine just for that boat. So we had a hell of a time sourcing parts, figuring stuff out.
That's why I'm here.
Carl could read the
Carl
print.
does the translation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the fun thing is, so it's English parts on an American boat. Every time you go to get a wrench, you never know what you're going to need. Metric, standard, who knows? Sometimes it's size, it's neither. There's all sorts of wacky stuff we've had to get through, and it's been a process, but it's been great. There's been plenty of opportunity to learn about these new types of systems. And the great thing is it has plenty of room for us to strap on everything that we need to make those boats even more usable. One of the things is, you can imagine we're taking this boat, we're working near people's bulkheads, we're going back and forth, and we're stopping here, and we're picking up, and we're going over here, and we're picking up, and we're going over here. We don't want to tie up to people's docks. It's not reliable. We don't know if the docks are going to be sturdy, if they're going to have a place to dock, if there's something in the way, who knows? Well, what we've come up with is spuds. If you're not familiar with what that is, it's a pole anchor. So it's a big old piece of metal that sticks down into the mud, into a guide on the boat.
About the same
Keeps the
size
boat
as
in
that
place.
thing, then. About the same size as that thing.
Oh, roundabout, yeah, but round and a giant spear made of aluminum. So what we did is we've been able to put guides on there, and we've turned these into spuddable work platforms. The other major thing that you might notice when you look at them, you guys on the way out, we can try to flash that up and walk around. We created a way to pick heavy stuff up out of the water. So if we encounter things that we need to get around, one of the parts of this project that I haven't mentioned yet is if you do have a floating dock or a jet ski dock that you don't want anymore, to reduce that surface area, one of the services we may offer is removing them out of people's care and getting rid of them. So to get these things up out of the water and move them out of the way, we have a davit, a pretty heavy duty davit on the back of our craft to be able to lift, let alone divers and dive gear, but anything we may have to remove in situ when we're working out in the field. So we've made these things as flexible and usable as we can.
Well, you want to talk about how we tested them over in High Bar?
Well, exactly. So we were lucky right about when we were done getting the spuds together, because there was actually a bunch of problems with metal and shipping stuff and getting material. Just getting materials was a story in itself. But right when we seemed to get everything together and the boat was for its first time usable in its final form, we got a call. You guys may be familiar with High Bar Harbor. It's a community behind Viking Village over on Long Beach Island. And they had a tornado. You probably all heard at least about the tornado over near the middle of the bay a couple months ago. Well, that tornado just kind of smashed through the top left corner of that community and ripped up a bunch of houses. It threw all the stuff from the houses into the bay. It was all over the marsh and into the lagoon. It got everywhere. The community came together. They were a really nice community organization there that got a bunch of volunteers together, and they went out to the marsh and they were picking up pieces of roofs and windows and smashed up everything. But they needed help clearing their lagoons. There was all sorts of sunk, God knows what, in the water in their lagoon, and they were worried about operating their boats in there. And just contaminants and pollution from all the stuff that might leak out of everything that was in your backyard that's now in the lagoon. Well, we got a call to go down and help them yank some of that stuff out of the water, and it was the perfect testing opportunity for our bridge boats. So if you look it up online, there's some great news articles there. There's some nice photographers and different people from all sorts of different organizations that were able to record our efforts. But we went down there and yanked what amounted to 2.5, maybe 3 roofs, complete roofs out of the lagoon, in addition to tools and vehicles and bicycles and whatever, anything that was in the lagoon that you could think that was in somebody's shed. And they were all very happy. It was a great test of all of our equipment. The davit itself was awesome. It let us pull up whole chunks of roof all at once. And the jets were wonderful. Driving it was awesome. And the spuds themselves, which was one of the more important lessons that we were able to learn, worked wonderfully. So it is partially proven. So we're pretty well prepared to go out into the world and begin our work. Now, this is just one vessel and the story of one part of this project. There's a few other pieces that we have going on that we're working on with this. So one of them is right out back. That's a fiberglass boat. It's not aluminum like the bridge boats. It looks a little more boaty, if you will. It's going to be one of our work vessels. It'll be a towing vessel for a barge that we have. So when we're removing any large objects from people's backyards, floating docks, jet ski docks, whatever it might be, we have a vessel to move that while our work vessels can stay in place and we can still operate. So we'll be able to have 2 teams, potentially 3 teams on the water at once doing this work, and hopefully knocking it out as fast as humanly possible before it gets too cold.
Yeah, so to just give you a reminder, the timeline as we understand it, and we're still learning, is the jellyfish adults are alive and well and thriving up until the end of summer, or almost Memorial Day, and then they start to die off. Meanwhile, as was mentioned before, they spawn, and it's those little eggs floating around that are now attaching themselves to the bulkheads. Right? So given that the adults are not producing any more, and given the nests are being built, now is an optimal time for us to go out and basically dislodge them so that they don't basically survive the next few weeks. And we then will probably do it for 3 or 4 weeks until the weather basically makes it too cold for us to effectively work in the water. And then come spring, probably March, again, depending on the weather, we'll go back to the lagoons and maybe do the same bulkheads or do bulkheads we haven't been able to do during this fall-winter period. All right. We can do that up until basically early May or mid-May. Again, we're working with scientists. It's not our call. They tell us when it's most effective for us to do this work, to disrupt them, dislodge them. And we'll be doing that over the next 3 years. We're funded, and as was stated already, what you've done today by bringing your plates, you're beginning the reporting process. The facts that we're recording tonight will be part of the study, and we'll be doing this again over the next 2.5 years, so that at the end, we hope that compared to areas that we didn't go to, the jellyfish population will be much reduced in the areas that we've worked on. Right? We're starting in Berkeley shores, because a lot of people have volunteered to get that, to support us in this effort and get the work done on the bulkheads. Once we've figured out all the kinks and figured out what's the most effective way to do the scrubbing, frankly, the cleaning, then we're going to do other parts of Barnegat Bay. Tom's River is likely, Brittany's likely, Lacey's also likely. So basically we'll expand up and down the bay so that we'll have a larger impact on the population. Not just Berkeley having the small population, but the whole bay. So we'll be doing this for a few years. We'll be refining our approach. We'll be refining how we do these kind of things. We'll be probably modifying how we collect data. And it's one big study. One thing the DEP has forced us to do is keep immaculate records of where we go, what we did, and how often we did it, and what resources it took to do that. So we're going to have lots of data to study by the end of the 3 years. But as Greg said, this is a pioneering effort. Other countries have started this kind of work, but we're the ones who really kind of ramped it up to the extent that we're planning to do it here. So we thank you all for helping us in this effort. We can't do it without the homeowners, the you citizen scientists, if you will, helping make sure that where we do go to do the cleanups, to disrupt the growth, it's where we need to be doing it, where we need to be making the change.
It's going to be a community effort, and even as we get going, we're going to iron the kinks out, and hopefully momentum's going to build. When we're out there scrubbing bulkheads, hopefully people are going to come out of their houses and be like, "What are you doing?" You know, all our efforts to reach them, they may not have thought we were as serious or really understood what we were doing, and maybe people start getting excited about trying to help out. And
we are building digital maps of everything we do. So wherever we visit, it will be marked, and basically we show what we did at that place at that point in time. So I think it's going to be public, isn't it? Sorry. This gentleman here is our
we can make it public.
He's our map designer, steward, specialist. So as and when the information becomes useful for everyone to understand and can be presented in a way that people recognize what it's actually telling them, then we will do that. It's all going to be out in the public, and as much as possible, everyone will know what we're doing, where we've been, and what we did there.
How do you access that information?
Well,
you said it'll be public. How can someone access it?
Sure, you want to speak to that? What might happen?
Ray, make something up on the spot.
Yeah.
There's lots of ways, but it'll be a web application.
Yeah.
We'll probably turn it into some sort of data set and make
Maybe
it available.
connect to Save Barnegat Bay.
Yeah, we can post it up on the Save Barnegat Bay website.
And if it's something if you want to use for it would be great if you want to turn it into research or something, do some statistical analysis.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah, we'll make the data available to everyone.
It's
Not
it's
just,
probably like a story map.
Yeah.
So you have the story that's linked to location and analysis to it. I don't know. This is for comment.
yeah. Well, just like Rick was saying, we build all our own stuff, so we're still figuring out what it's going to be once we finish building it.
Yeah. That is this place. Yeah, what's
I
up?
have a question. If you do a bulk head and it's clean,
Sure.
how long would you expect it to stay clean?
Well, so clean is a relative term.
But what satisfaction is when you pull away with the boat,
Yeah.
when do you think they might start growing?
So what's going to happen is you can't, nature is nature, and what we're trying to do is target them at their most vulnerable times of the year. And like Carl said, we're taking our cues from science. So as we go, we'll see when is the most effective or what the weather dictates. But our goal right now is to just kind of hit them 2 times a year. And then see if that affects the population. Inevitably, there's still going to be jellyfish. They're still going to grow on the bulkheads and stuff. But we're hoping that because of these more opportune times for us to disturb them, that will lend itself to decreasing their population more than if we did it on another time of the year.
Well, any of the bulkhead makers looking to coat them with anything?
We're not there yet. That's not a horrible way of thinking, but that's not a part of this. That's not the scope of this project yet. If we prove, if this is a step towards proving that that's part of the problem definitively, because right now there's a lot of conjecture. People aren't necessarily in agreement that it's definitely that, or that this project is even going to work. It could, it might not.
Yeah,
We don't know.
Your platelets are helping prove that.
So if we do prove that that's legitimate, we have proof saying that this is a problem, that would be the next step towards going and maybe altering the way that the bulkheads are made, or putting a standard in place saying that your bulkheads need to be like this, and that could help solve the problem before we scrub.
Something on the plastic base.
Yeah, or a way, maybe a texture, or I don't know. Absolutely, yeah, it's a great idea, but this is the first step on that path.
Yeah, if you want to come up with an invention.
Yeah, if you got the
We'll paint some next time. Right, exactly.
We're just gonna dip those in paint and just. Right? Any other questions? Anyone?
Thank you.
No, no problem. Our pleasure.
Thank you.
If anyone, open invitation, jellyfish or not, if there's people at the squad house, we kind of work here quite often. You're always welcome to come on by, stop by if you got questions, if you need help with something. That's what we're here for. So even outside of the Jellyfish Project, always a pleasure to have the public by if you guys ever want to come hang out.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, in the same way that we just did it for the folks in High Bar, it does. If you think there's a navigation hazard in your lagoon, you want us to come check it, we'll come check it.
Your launch area goes in the lagoon. Maybe we can come. We're not too busy. We've been known to do that.
All right, thank you.
A pleasure. Yeah. Have a good night. And if anyone wants to, if you're hanging out, I'll point the boats out on the way back, on the way out.
Hey, you can climb on the boat if you want.